Last time we had an energy shock like what the one that we're experiencing right now, the 6 months after that, inflation went up double digit, went up to 11%. Now, what that would mean is if inflation goes up 11%, the average American would have to come up with $800 to $1,000 extra a month just to pay for the things that they're already paying for. What also happened was that shortly thereafter, interest rates started to go up. So meaning the Fed funds rate, which ends up affecting 10-year treasury notes, which ends up affecting mortgage rates. History doesn't repeat itself, it rhymes. When inflation goes up, the only tool that they have to deal with it is to raise rates. So then with a high degree of probability, in the next 6 to 8 months, we can expect inflation to go up, and we can also expect interest rates to go up as a result to try to take inflation down. That means, we could expect mortgage rates to be where they're at, and with a high degree of probability, higher. The other thing to consider is the context. So there's this kind of E-shaped economy. At the bottom of the E-shaped economy are people making like $60,000 a year or less, and they're having a very difficult time financially. In the middle, though, is people all the way up to $167,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So they quietly like relabeled that middle class now. It's like a new label. And increasingly those people, because of the cost of everything, they're increasingly having a difficult challenge and being pushed out of being able to purchase homes. I went on 2 appointments last Saturday where people had bought when rates were lower, and just because of inflation, just because the general requiring more dollars to buy the same stuff, whether it's insurance or gas or bills, groceries, they're like, we need to sell our house.
They bought after the rates went up. So where I'm noticing a lot of the pressure in the marketplace right now is people that bought after May of 2022.
Yeah.
Anybody who bought 2021, 2020, they've got a 2%, 3% rate.
For now. Meaning like they have that rate, but let's say inflation keeps going up and up and up. So it's interesting that it's affecting it in a tiered way. So you're like, hey, if somebody has 4 or 5%, they're the ones that are calling me now. The people who have 2 or 3, not yet.
I mean, if their mortgage is fixed, why would they be calling you in the future?
Because the cost of everything else keeps going up.
Yeah. Usually the ones that are in pain are 5, 6, 7,
Got
8,
it.
basically.
So around 5, 6, and let's say inflation keeps happening, it might be people that are like 4 or 5, right? It keeps, because it's eroding purchasing power. So that's the context. And we have this E shape. Those people in the middle are increasingly having a difficult time, and they have a tendency to rely solely on mortgages, like traditional mortgages, to buy homes. And if they don't have access to capital outside of that, whether that be equity in their house or equities in the market or whatever, or they have parents who can give them money, they're not gonna be able to purchase. And then you have that top, probably 10% income earners. That's $167,000 and above. Increasingly, they can still transact. Inflation's happening, but most importantly, they have access to capital, meaning they can sell a house and get the down payment money. They have stocks that they can either borrow against or sell, or they have parents who can wire them money for down payments.
The people that are somewhat struggling right now, where I'm seeing a lot of pain, is the people who bought after 2022. Because the reality is the people who bought before 2022, they have options. What I mean by that is that if you bought pre-2022, you have a 3% interest rate, which means your mortgage is likely less than market rent, which means like worst case scenario, if you need to exit the property, you could rent it out and the property will pay off itself. The people that are in financial hardship are the people that bought after 2022, not only because they bought it at a higher rate, but because the mortgage for the property oftentimes is higher than market rent. So if they have to move out of the property, their options are limited. And if there's not much appreciation, like I'm talking to a client right now, I mean, she bought 2022. She's like, look, like the rates, I can't rent it out and I need out and I don't have any equity. Mm-hmm. What do I do? And those people, I know people that like, they bought a $3 million property, a listing that I had, their mortgage was $20,000, bro. The market rent for a property like that on the high end is like $8,000. So if something changes in their financial situation where they no longer need to live there, or something changes with income, dude,
or business or whatever, it just changes, right?
Your negative cash flow, $12,000. Your options are a lot more limited.